Scott, we have a 12-team Superflex PPR 1.75 for the tight end start 10. Are you going Sam Laporta and Puka Nacua or Brock Bowers in a 26-second? Go ahead, man.
Ooh. We got last year's tight end one, this year's real tight end one. I don't know. This feels like it's the Laporta Nacua side because I can probably do something with Laporta, but can you do anything with Laporta? That's the funny thing is I'd initially say, okay, I can turn around and then sell Sam Laporta and get something else, right? But can I, Clay? Can I sell Sam Laporta for even a 26 first? No, I don't think so.
And a 1.75?
I don't think so. I think it's the new age dynasty manager is going to look at his season and look at it as being he's solid. He's startable. I can use him. You know, he gives me top 12 tight end numbers, but like, is that what I want to blow my future pick on right now when the season is coming to an end, when who knows what the tight end landscape is going to look like in the off season? Not going to be a lot, probably changes. So, I mean, why bank on that I'm going to be able to move Laporta where am I interested in moving Brock Bowers? Let's just go to that side real quick. I'm interested in moving Brock Bowers.
Do you want to move him unless you were just getting full freight plus?
No, because I do think
so you're not arrogant enough, as you've said in the past, to not sell Bowers if you're getting proper value. Go ahead.
Well, I do think in 1.75 that Laporta is not going to move the needle here, but it just comes down to what can I do with him in my market. If I think I'm confident in it, I know Puka Nacua is probably still a good bet to outscore Brock Bowers or at least match what the production is. Really what's hidden in this trade is where else are the tight end assets in my league? And we don't do a good job with measuring that. But let's say there's one other team that has Trey McBride and that other team has TJ Hawkinson, right? Like in that league, I need to be able to calculate how valuable is Brock Bowers, not on the trade market, because the trade market's going to be subject to whatever I'm being offered in my league, right? How valuable is he to me relative to what the rest of my league looks like from a tight end landscape? If there's 7 teams that are just streaming tight end, there might be another team that's actually interested in buying Sam Laporta in that case because they're already fine with just starting Cade Otton or Hunter Henry or Noah Fant or whoever it might be. At the same time, that might create a league market where they go, okay, why would I give up anything of value, Clay, for Sam Laporta when I've been rolling out there, insert tight end, whoever it is, Pat Freiermuth, and he's okay. You know what I mean? So I think in that case, you have to measure what is the Brock Bowers advantage against 7, 8 other teams that have no plan at tight end compared to, okay, what do those teams look like from a standpoint of, can I get another positional advantage back for Brock Bowers, right? Can I get Puka and something else back? And is Puka enough of an advantage at receiver to match that? So I don't think if Brock Bowers is great, and if you look at his season this year, Clay, it's still like 10% lower than what Travis Kelce's average was for like 5 seasons. So like talking about how great Brock Bowers is, I think we are moving the goalposts because we haven't had a great tight end since Kelce. So we're going like, oh, can he be the next guy? Here's the reality for everybody listening. This is probably Brock Bowers' best season ever. He's not just going to rip off 120 catches and 1,500 yards every season. No. But the 17 and a half points per game you're getting from him is probably his peak. There's a very good bet he doesn't just get better, yet the asset Brock Bowers, Clay, is out of control. And really what that asset is measuring is I have the dominant tight end one. Even if they're not better than Kelce or better than Gronk, I have that relative to the field controlled for the next 3, 4, 5 years. What is that worth? I don't have a great answer, but I do think that there is a world where you would explore selling Brock Bowers. So in that case, give me Puka. I'll gamble I can do something with Laporta. How about that?
No, sounds good. And no Shane tonight. Everything's fine. Wish him well. He's just having to take care of some stuff. But yeah, welcome to anybody who hasn't listened to us before. Normally there's 3 of us on a screen. When we say start 8, start 9, start 10, what we're talking about is how many you start each week, not including kicker and defense. Okay. So normally when we say start 8, start 9, you want to consolidate all your depth into hammers. Start 11, 12, that's where these more ancillary pieces come into play. like Elijah Moore is who we talked about last night. I want to say who's a gem in a 14-team start 11. Anyway, so let's go to a super chat from Log. Thank you very much, sir. Good to see you, man. This is one of two. Oh God, are you starring? I hope. Yeah, you got him. Nice.
I got him.
And it looks like it's going to be 3 then, but we'll go with it. 12-team Superflex, half PPR, full PPR for the tight end, start 10. Maye, Herbert, quarterback, Ayuk, McBride, and Komet. That's it. Like, that's his team. 8 firsts between 25 and 26. Multiple seconds and thirds between the years as well. 101 locked up, as you can imagine. Is this a team where I could just take Jeanty and McMillan, 101 and 102? I have the top 2 picks as well as 105. Would you be looking to trade back 101 or 102? He says, I figured I could make the most of the 25 picks because I have 2 great QBs and a great tight end. Should he try his luck? What are you doing here? Okay, so he's got hardly any assets. It's a 12-team Superflex, very small tight end premium. Maye and Herbert at quarterback. He's got Ayuk, McBride, Komet, and that is it in terms of players. 8 firsts between 25 and 26. What are you doing with this? Obviously, is the 101.
Well, I think one thing that I've learned over the last year or two is that a team like this looks completely bleak, right? We would say this team's not competing until 2027, 2028. But dude, not anymore. We saw teams go from absolute shit to like they're in the playoffs this year. Now, they may not win the title. They may never win a title. You might have hit on Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, and Brock Bowers. You know, one of those teams that had 3 top 6 picks. Maybe you mixed in a Ladd McConkey or someone like that in there, and you're going, damn, I really nailed that draft. You have a competitive team now. That's the first thing, is if you hit on guys like that, it's not that hard to buy. I call them innings eaters. That's an old term that I used to use, but it's not that hard to go find a 13-point per game flex player, Clay. I can go buy like a Rico Dowdle type or a Darnell.
Yeah,
those are
Mooney.
available.
I was about to say Mooney. Exactly. They're all over
everywhere.
The place. Yeah.
And sometimes those guys you can purchase at a minimal cost, and they definitely out-deliver what you paid. But sometimes those guys randomly in a week or two or in like a 3-game stretch. I mean, Darnell Mooney was like a top 6 receiver for a stretch. So sometimes they can even outperform that replacement level. So because there's such an availability of those types of players, now you have to have the assets to get those types of players. You're not getting a guy like Mooney when he's doing well for a third. But if you had an extra second to throw around, like you can easily patchwork together in, what was this, a start 10?
Yeah. It's a 12-team Superflex start 10, half PPR, small tight end premium.
Okay. So in a start 10, you can probably patchwork together 2 or 3 of those spots and just basically say, I'm going to use those spots rotationally over the next couple of years. And I don't even know who's going to be there. But if that's what I'm missing from being a team that's out of the playoffs to a team that's in the top 4, top 5, kind of fighting for some seeding in the playoffs, that's not that hard to get there. Where this becomes tricky is, go back to the original team.
Yeah. So here's the team, and then generally his question is wanting to know what to do with 101 and 102, if he should trade back and stuff. But go ahead.
Well, first of all, Ayuk's not an asset. You know what he is? Like below the Elijah Moore and Darnell Mooney level. So he does, listing him is like listing your 210. You know what I mean? Now, you're going to be able to do more with him at some point when there's a window. But he's not a guy I'm looking and going, okay, I'm waiting until he's back. He's automatically in my start 10. Neither is Cole Kmet. Those are just the 2 assets that you have. So I'm just treating those as I have 2 other second or third round picks, right? Like they're all interchangeable. I know at some point I'm going to have to flip my team to, hey, I want to probably try to compete. So I think everything is up in the air. I think you can draft guys at 102 or 101 if you want. But if you told me I'm accumulating assets, I'd be fine doing that again. The idea is you don't want to just continue this repetitive cycle of every year you have 6 firsts, because guess what happens if you don't plan to compete till 2027, Clay? At that point, you're going, I'm kind of questioning Justin Herbert. Is he really a guy I'm building around anymore? Like that's how fast shit changes. So I would just recommend, if you have all these picks, and there's a lot of people in these chats and in these streams that have, hey, I have 10 firsts over the next 3 years. Like, how do I build out my roster? Pick your spots. You know, you're going to have opinions on players. I'm going to have places where I go, I don't want to draft that player. But the idea is you want to get to a point where, and that's why we play in a lot of leagues, You don't have to be right. You just have to be kind of smart with how you deploy those assets, and you don't get reckless. What you don't want to do is leave yourself where, hey, I have 4 great players now. I depleted 5 of my picks to get 2 of those studs. Now I'm still kind of chasing where I was before, but I don't have the flexibility. So just embrace it. Don't marry yourself to Ashton Jeanty or Ted McMillan. Hell, a deal may come up where you go.
Look at how, right.
A deal may come up where you go, man, I can get, the 103 and Kenneth Walker for one of those picks. And you're going, okay, Ashton Jeanty versus Kenneth Walker. I'd rather have Ashton Jeanty, the asset, but for how I'm building my team, a deal like that could make sense in real time if it pops up. So don't marry yourself to those picks. Just stay water, stay fluid.
Scott, talk to us about league activity and how that comes into play with these conversations we're having right now and being able to turn around a rebuild very, very quickly. And yeah, talk about league activity. And here we are going into the playoffs. We're about to be week 1 into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of talked about it a little bit when we did our recording last night, but I think there's a big learning lesson for me on activity this year has been, as we see Dynasty shifting to this kind of like day-to-day, week-to-week, even month-to-month game, to sell anymore. And I had someone privately DM me this today. And they were saying they're kind of stepping away from Dynasty. And I asked, well, because I'm curious, why are you stepping away? I get it. If you have kids, you have family, you have obligations, like time, that's one thing. A lot of people will say I have to cut back because of that this time of year. But the person said something on top of that made it interesting. They basically said that, there is a bigger edge today in, I guess you would say, like grinding the edges, but also being able to capitalize on the volatility that exists more so than ever. And what I mean by that is, if I'm going to do it again next year, I want to set my teams up to where I don't have time to grind every single week and every single day on these teams. But in order to be active on the market, you have to be able to say, okay, if I have a team that is a top 4 team, Clay, for me to probably be able to sell, given what the buyers kind of look like in today's Dynasty game, do you know what I'm going to have? Players to sell that I don't want to sell. Exactly. Players to sell that other people want that are currently producing. I mean, we talked about like Cortland Sutton, right? There's people out there paying like late firsts for him.
Sure.
And it's like most people that have him, like I'll throw this out to the chat. How many leagues is the Cortland Sutton manager motivated to just get rid of them? And that you can put 50 players in that range where you go, oh yeah, that's a great Dynasty trade. Except for on my team where it's a 12 by 12 and I can't afford to trade Cortland Sutton because I've been starting him every week and he's one of the reasons why I'm competing. So what I've learned is like, can I make my roster deep enough, but also fluid enough and interchangeable enough to where I can go, you know what? This is a random week 10. Someone's offered me a first for Terry McLaurin. He hasn't been worth a first in 4 years.
Yep.
But I have this other guy on the bench. Maybe it's Cole Kmet, who's a lot more volatile. But in a 1.75 tight end premium, I could justify taking the first for one player and either throwing in the other player and just living with the results, or then going, okay, I can sell this player, and then I have to go turn around and go buy a replacement for that spot because I still want to keep my construction there. You have to be active. You have to be able to put in the work. Correct.
Yeah, you got to build that in. It's unless somebody's going to do the selling for you ahead of time. It's like, yeah, go get me this. Go get me something cool. Come to me with that, and I'll hit accept. You're making me
to your original question. There are certain leagues it's way harder to do that maneuver up and down, in and out than others, right? Like there's some of our leagues. If I trade a player away and I got 2 seconds for him, I bet you I can find somebody within an hour to sell me a player for a second, right? So I can pull I traded this guy for 2 seconds, and then I went and bought this player for a second. Scott netted a free second, and I inserted Elijah Moore instead of Jerry Jeudy, right? And I can live with the difference between the two, but it takes the right league to where you can pull that off in real time. Because I can't afford to go, well, I'll wait a couple weeks, Clay, before I make the buy. Some leagues are not active enough. We get a lot of questions. Oh, league's not active at all. You trade away a good player, like there's not even another possibility to get another player for a month, if not ever.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to measure that before you start playing this week-to-week, day-to-day game. So
here's a question from Sean. This was one of the earliest, if not the earliest. Thank you for the question. He says, as a team with a bye and draft capital to spend if needed, are you waiting until next week to use it? That's a great question. What do you think, Scott?
So we're talking about no trade deadline here, right?
Correct.
I'm guessing.
He's got some stuff. He's got some stuff to spend. Let's assume maybe a late first. He's got maybe 2 seconds. Not a ton, but he's got some ammo.
So wouldn't you say that the first edge would be you can wait and see the results for this week, right? You can know who you're going against. You can know who advanced, who didn't. So that would be the first reason. The second reason is, I mean, is there a team that just squeaked into the playoffs? They're the 5 or 6 seed. They have a couple guys that have been carrying them in the playoffs. Like this is why no trade deadline leagues people don't like, because it's very possible, Clay, that the Derrick Henry manager is the 4 seed. They get knocked out. They had no inclination to trade him before, but now that they're out, they go, well, I can kind of do a soft reboot and I'll just gamble that he doesn't retain what he did this year and do it again next year. And if they're truly motivated to make the deal, I mean, what I like to do with that first is I'm dangling that out there kind of towards the end of week 15. If you're playing on sleeper, you can trade at any time. Hell, you can trade in the middle of a game. You know what I mean? Like I've seen it where, you know, a guy gets traded mid-game.
It's like this player is no longer on your roster.
Correct.
When you look at yeah, right.
But like if I have that first, I'm dangling it out there, especially one of the 2 teams that maybe gets knocked out. But I'm not necessarily like I have to pay up for. That's where I'm going to leverage it. I think I can leverage it more in the semifinals because I can go, sure, you know, give me Derrick Henry, but you also have to throw me in, like, toss me in like Jalen Wright, something like, you know, give me another little sweetener. And guess who doesn't have the leverage when they're eliminated? The guy with the 31-year-old running back.
With the Derrick Henry owner.
If he wants to do the deal, he'll probably cave and give you an extra piece. Now, if he just says, I'm running it back with Derrick Henry until he dies, then there's no point. They're not going to trade for, you know, that price anyway. But you have the leverage to go, you're out of it now. Like I can kind of get that sweetener and still feel like I got, you know, maybe I get 2/3 back. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I still preserved a little bit of my pick value, but I got exactly what I want. So yeah, I'm not trading it probably until next week, unless I just get the, you know, a 12 by 12. If someone's going to trade me like 2 starters and that's all I can get today, then I'll do that early. But other than that, I'm waiting.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I can pick it. Kind of reminds me of the auction league. Scott beat me into the playoffs. It was head to head. We had like almost the exact same points for going into last week. Anyway, it was winning in 16 teams, start 11, and I forget what I was getting at there. Oh yeah, I made a couple trades at the end to try to buy my way in. I had to buy Cooper Rush. I had to buy Isaac Arendo. I mean,
you nailed those. They gave you almost 50 points combined. There was one mistake you made. I can't remember what it was, but you played somebody, and I feel bad for you because you lost George Pickens at the last minute, and you lost Breece Hall like a day before.
Yes, it was awful. I was like scrambling to like fill my lineup because 16 teams start 11. If you played in those, it's crazy. So. Yeah, luckily active leagues. That's nice.
I think the bugaboo that cost you though, the one mistake that you definitely played, if you would have looked at like how he's being used, was you played Amir Abdullah.
Well, I know.
And like he's been back to just the like he's, you know, what he's been for 5 years. He gets like 3 touches. He only comes in on pass protection. They don't check the ball down. And you had, I think the guy you probably would have played instead, you would have played like Luke Schoonmaker, and he got like 8 points. I think you would have won if you would have played Luke Schoonmaker over Amir Abdullah. I mean, that's how literally the entire
season. Is that how awesome it is though? Playing in deep leagues to where it comes down to Schoonmaker versus Abdullah as a start sit decision. It gets gross, but it's fun.
Let me ask your opinion as a seller here. If you're the team that gets heartbreakingly knocked out, whether it's missed the playoffs by, you know, a 1 game like we did in that league, or, you know, you get knocked out next week and you were the 3 seed and you're thinking, let's just go to the extreme. I thought I had 2 leagues where I thought for sure, if I can just beat my opponent, I'm going to beat the median, just because a lot of these leagues, when you play against the median, I don't know if you noticed, but like 4 teams just destroy the median, and like
exactly.
3 other teams are so
Yeah.
shitty they drag it way down. So it's like
it's almost irrelevant at the end. You beat the median by like 95 points.
Yeah, you're not going to lose to the median, but I had 2 leagues where I thought I was getting the bye. I ended up the 3 seed, which sucks because now I have to play a first round game. Now, both of those, I'm probably a 25-point favorite based on the projection, so I should smash this week. I guarantee you one of those I will lose to the random team that just, goes nuclear. So if you had that team that you thought 2 weeks ago was the bye, and then you're knocked out to the 6th seed in the first round, are you salty to where you will go, I ain't trading with, if the team that then just beat you once you're Derrick Henry, are you going to be a little salty with them in terms of just handing them the player, even though it's a good dynasty?
It's going to be an extra little tax. It's going to be an extra.
How big of a tax?
You better win. How big of a tax? I'd say it's probably the equivalent of a 207, something like that.
Like a second. So you're not
like
going to be
second in terms of a tax. I'm going to make it hurt if you just beat me, but I'll probably play it and try to weasel my way into a second by being like, all right, but you better, you better win this thing or something like that after beating me.
But you're not going to be the manager that gets bent and ends up, they force you to give back the 3rd.
No, that's a Shane move, isn't it? Would that be a Shane move?
I mean,
I don't know.
I guess it's contextual, but I just think that you do, because it's a short period of time, right? If you can still trade, if you don't have a trade deadline, that you got to act within a couple days. You know what I mean? So if you it's one of those leagues that are going to literally hold it against you for a week or 2 because they got knocked out, then maybe you treat it a little bit differently with how you play that question we had earlier about the pick.
That's what I was thinking too. And I was thinking, like, if you look ahead at a matchup next week or something, you just want to proactively buy someone where it's going to be an absolute smash. Well, I was going to say anybody was supposed to be a smash against the Bengals last night, right? In terms of wide receivers, that's why I bought Cooper Rush. But anyway, you get the idea. I don't know.
And I'm usually, and maybe this is just me, I'm usually very open and honest when it comes. Like, I'm easy to trade with when I get knocked out of the playoffs. Like, if you want if you want my like Christian Watson, give me back like Keon Coleman. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take.
Well, hell yeah.
I'll take the exact asset back. The only caveat is you have to make it make sense for me. Like, you have to motivate me with something. You know what I mean? Like, I just had a deal today. It's a best ball league, so it's a little different, but I am in the playoffs, and the opponent, Richie, Helt, you might know him. He does a lot of underdog. He's in a couple of our he's a couple of our DTI 5 leagues. He got knocked out, and it's best ball, so every roster spot matters. But I had Aiden O'Connell dead, probably. I had Will Dissly probably dead.
Take on.
And the third player I had was Keon Coleman, and he may or may not play. And so I offer him Keon Coleman, Will Dissly, and Aiden O'Connell. Now, he's out of it. Does he really give a shit about Will Dissly or Aiden O'Connell?
It's insulting. I would just leave that in the inbox. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Because it's best ball. Now, there's levels to these things. Like, obviously, in lineup leagues, you're going to be making this trade on a little bit of a higher ping because it's not best ball and you have a lineup to set. But here's what I offered him. I offered him Aiden O'Connell for Desmond Ridder. So I'm literally getting just as shitty of a starter, but he's a starter. And Aiden O'Connell's not. I offered him Will Dissly for Austin Hooper. Is there any difference between them going forward? No, they're old, slow, tight ends that are only good for are they healthy this week? One is, one's not. And I offered him Keon Coleman for Christian Watson, and I have Jordan Love. He declined it. But when I kicked in a third, he's like, okay, because he doesn't care about the 3 players. They're all the same to him.
This sounds like rock bottom, Scott. This trade that you're talking about. It sounds like rock bottom.
It is a 3-copy, 32-man roster, start 13 best ball. So you cannot afford to have Will Dissly eating a 0, because I look at it and I say, because here's the thing, the guys he's trading me, 0 value except for what he could get somebody else to give him. And it's not the kind of league where people are like, here, I'll give you a third for Austin Hooper. So he took the 3 injured guys, which next year they could be usable to him. But it's because I had that third. He goes, okay, like, I'll acquiesce and give you the trade. And you just got to give me that third and we'll do it. Because it's basically me paying a third tax to fix what I needed to fix today. And everyone can apply that to their league if they don't have a trade deadline. Oh, you have a hole because of an injury in the playoffs? You got to pay a little tax to fix it. But I will trade with you. I'm not going to hold out and try to really, really tax you because I know you need it and I don't.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's seems to be a correlation with best ball, not the crazy one that you're talking about, but best ball leagues and then deep leagues, to where you're more than happy, or not more than happy, you're very willing to tier down and get an extra asset as part of a deal. Just like in deep leagues, same thing with best ball, right? So if you're looking at a spectrum, should people consider best ball, playing those as if it's kind of, I know it all depends, Scott, roster sizes and all that stuff, but treat it more as if it's a deeper lineup. What do you think?
If it's like a start 12 or more, then you're probably looking at most of the players as the analysis on what they're worth is are they available? That's the first thing. Like even just because you have, I mean, think about our 16 teamer or a couple of our 14 teamers. They're deep, they're start 12, start 13. Like you might have, like, what is Marshawn Lloyd worth in one of those leagues, Clay? The analysis of what Marshawn Lloyd is worth is as soon as I put him on the trade block, I go, I might as well keep him because he ain't worth shit.
Yeah, right.
You know when he's worth something? When he plays. That is as far as it goes in deep leagues like that. People don't have time for assigning artificial dynasty value to these just pure hopium players that are not contributing. Like they're not going to view Elijah Moore as worth way less than Marshawn Lloyd because one is kind of a has-been that is what he is and one has this upside going forward. No one's trading you Elijah Moore for Marshawn Lloyd because I guarantee the person with Elijah Moore, they're going, I'm starting him.
Yeah, at a deep
Marshawn Lloyd,
he's starting. Yeah,
I don't have 8 spots on my bench for all Marshawn Lloyds or a couple Javon Bakers or a Jermaine Burton. Like those guys are fine, except for the only people that want them are the ones that go, I don't care about right now. I don't care about the next 4 weeks. So I'll collect those types. And that's the kind of person that you need to trade with. Now, a lot of times those players have already sold their Elijah Moores. They don't have any of them. So it's like, who do you trade with in those circumstances? So yeah, it's a different economy if you're playing in a super deep league or best ball. It's just totally different than what most people are used to.
Good stuff there. Okay, let's move to Tebow 15 legend. Good to see you. He says, assuming Jeanty gets first round draft capital, is he the dynasty running back 1? If not, who would you take over him?
I mean, I think there's a case, right? Like he's not going to necessarily have Bijan hype, but it's going to be right there. And if he goes in the first round, I mean, I think at minimum he gets into the range of where like Jonathan Taylor was when he was a rookie. I know he wasn't a first round pick, but people are already assigning him. And this was a different era. This was 2020, but we were searching for the next. I'm going to go off a tangent a little bit here, Clay. In 2020, we were already thinking in 2020. I remember dropping podcasts in Dynasty and Chill about how
about 2023,
Jonathan Taylor and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and DeAndre Swift and J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers, they were going to replace. There was legitimately questions whether Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara were going to get extensions. Dalvin Cook, are they going to even get a second contract?
I was listening to you. I was listening to you.
I know.
Point. Yeah.
But it's amazing that some of the guys we were already wondering. I remember that offseason, it was, man, is Mixon going to get paid? Is Kamara going to get paid? Those guys are still RB1s.
Yeah, it's always bail on them before.
All the guys from the 2020 class are dead. So it's funny how you look back and you're like, yeah, we're already questioning whether those guys are going to be replaced. So with that said, is it a world where Bijan is kind of being already kind of pushed down for guys like Jeanty? Maybe not Bijan, but the next tier of he completely just railroads guys like Kenneth Walker, right?
Yes.
They're afterthoughts compared to him. So where does he start? Minimum RB3, 4?
Yeah, he's just going to be seen kind of as a little bit of a reboot on Bijan, essentially.
Are you going to make that mistake again, though? Given the market at running back, are you be willing to pay that much for a guy where, Bijan's had a great career so far. But Clay, if he doesn't score like 20 points a game for his career, people are going to go like, isn't it already feeling like Bijan's career is like he just left a little bit to be desired? Isn't that like what you're going to say after like 3 or 4 more years of him, where you're like, man, he was not like Le'Veon Bell. So he's a little bit of a disappointment. It just feels like it's going to be hard to live up to the hype. At the same time, what can you actually sell that 101 for? That's what I'm curious. What do you think it's going to look like?
That's where my head went, is I'm selling the pick at that point. If we're having that kind of conversation, I'm trying to trade it.
But if you have all like-minded people in the league, who is going to pay for it?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's rap about it. What's the 101 worth right now? 2025 101. Okay. Let's see. Crowd. Yeah. Throw out a name. Let's just do a 1-for-1 for kicks.
And here's the caveat. What is the 101 worth to the people in the crowd? Not assuming you're going to be able to resell it for more, because the seller's already going to be going, what can I sell it for? Right. I think a lot of people are going to go, I want the 101, but not because I want the asset, the running back. I want the 101 because what can I do with it? And our discussion right now is we're already trying to see what we could do with it. We don't really know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. What would it take? What would it take to get the 101 right now? How about Breece Hall and Nico Collins?
Oh, I would do that. Come on.
You would take Breece and Nico?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was actually gonna say Breece Hall and Ladd McConkey. Is Ladd enough?
He might be. He's very likable, and he seems to be pretty good at football. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Breece and Nico one is, and I actually think that Breece is, I don't want to say on the downswing, but I do think he is going to struggle to. He's going down the path of like Ken Walker or Jonathan Taylor, where we know he's good at any point. He could have a 20 point per game season, but I'm not going to go, I guarantee it's going to happen. You know what I mean? That's where we were with Jonathan Taylor. He did it, but then he's still probably a good running back, but the asset value on a guy like Breece is gone. But if I'm just making the bet, like, let me ask you this, Clay, the first 2 years of their career, is it guaranteed Ashton Jeanty outscores Breece Hall for 2025 and 2026?
No.
So with that statement right there, your head immediately goes to, okay, well, I'd rather have Jeanty because of the asset, right? Because I have the 101, I can do a lot more with it. But you're also getting Nico Collins thrown in on top, like that. So it's almost like the bet for the players, you're never going to be sure that Breece versus Jeanty bet is more than 60-40 in one favor or the other. So it feels like that's the type of deal you'd be seeking out. I don't know how many people pay that, though. How many rosters do you have where you have 2 guys like that you were really just a cold offer, a 2-for-1 like that? Any roster?
Yeah, the OG league. For some reason, somehow I'm still stacked in that league. Are you the 1 seed and I'm the 3 or something like that?
I'm pretty sure we have the 2 highest scoring teams. So
I won it last year. You're challenging me. Yeah, I've still got like a late first to mess around with. Maybe I'm gonna package. I've got so many tight ends. I wish you weren't going against me. You could help me do something with those tight ends. Like, I've got that market cornered, all of the running backs. It's gonna be interesting.
Dude, that's the that was
overpaid for Tyler. I overpaid for Kyler so badly, though. I spent a bunch of money to move up to 101 to get Caleb, and this is a 14 team start 11 1.75 bells and whistles, all of that stuff. Traded a bunch to get Caleb, and then ended up trading Caleb and what's a late ass 25 first for Kyler Murray. I had Kyler. I wish I had that. You had him first?
I had Kyler. I traded Kyler, Marv, and my 27 first for Chase, Burrow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I got like Calvin Ridley thrown in or something like that. And
that's why you're there.
The Chase Burrow has just been, that's just been every week. It's like they've won me 3 or 4 matchups alone. So, I mean, yeah, it's funny how you have Kyler and we could end up going against each other, because I've like literally traded Kyler, got him back, and then traded him again. So.
Good stuff, man. All right, so let's go to Ma, Texas. Good to see you. Nice seeing you from last Tuesday. How rude. 35 minutes in, 236 eyeballs watching. Thank you very much. Hit that like if you'd be so kind. Easiest way to help out the channel. and hit the notification bell. I was looking at the analytics and see how many people watch from the notification bells. We don't have tons of people who have it set up, and I do star like the first people who get in here, they get on the screen. So might want to have that bell turned on. Okay. With the Brooks injury, if you're chasing a title, would you trade your first for Chubba Hubbard? Say it's a 12 team start 10, 1.75 for the tight ends.
Man, is this the best I can get? Because it's the same discussion that we had earlier, right? Like I have a first to spend.
Yeah.
I have
like Cortland Sutton kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I guess you look at like, okay, if I'm getting Chubba Hubbard, he's RB 15 on the season. Like he's good. But Clay, do you know how many points per game Chubba Hubbard averaging? 15.4.
Mm-hmm.
Now Brooks is gone, so you can kind of maybe hope that what he was getting a month ago might be back into play. But there's a lot of running backs in that range. And so it feels like trading the first for Chubba Hubbard. Can I get Tony Pollard cheaper? Can I get Brian Robinson cheaper? You know, can I get?
Can you get Pollard cheaper than Chubba Hubbard these days?
Aaron Jones, Rashad White. Like there's a lot of guys in that range that it kind of feel. I mean, even I can go a little bit cheaper and just bank on maybe a nice run to end the season, like Ramondre Stevenson. You know what I mean? Like it feels like if that's what I'm buying. Now, if you're going to tell me you have extreme conviction on Chubba Hubbard and his matchups or something like that, then fine. But I don't look at that as like how I want to spend my first. Now, what I would do is, will you give me Chubba Hubbard and another guy I can flex? Like, can you give me Chubba Hubbard and pick a receiver that's kind of in that range? Will you give me like Chubba Hubbard and I don't know, guy like Jawan Jennings? Like, can I get a 2-for-1? You know, start 11, start 12 if I might need 2 spots. Okay, if I can do Jawan Jennings and Chubba Hubbard, and then I can turn around and go, okay, well, I also have, you know, Josh Downs, and I'm hoping he comes back, but I can then sell Josh Downs and go, fine, I kind of netted the other guys for free. You know what I mean? Yes. Like if I can do something like that and I can get a 2-for-1, that's where I'm willing to just creatively not care about the players, because really what I need is just to fill a couple holes for the rest of the season. I hate giving up a straight first.
Yeah.
Or one running back like that.
Right. I'll do that with a second or a third, but if I'm slinging a first around there has to be, I have to be getting something else. Like you said, something that can score points now, or something that again is flexible, has liquidity in the form of even a third next year, kind of thing.
Well, and I'll just say about Chubba Hubbard, and there's a lot of guys that fit in that category. The beauty of it is you may look at it because people will go, I wouldn't pay a first for Chubba Hubbard because in a month he's not going to be worth a first. Well, no shit, Sherlock. You know, it's the off season. That's not the guy people are going to be coveting. But you know what he probably is, Clay? A good bet going into 2025 to be the exact same thing that he was this year, which again may not be worth a first in the offseason. But if he comes out next year and there's going to be no Brooks and he's averaging 17 a game for the first 3 weeks, guess what he can probably do?
Do it the same.
Probably get a first for him or something close to it. So it's not like your asset goes to, I spent the first, now I have something worth nothing. You have something temporarily not worth nothing. It's like a car. You have an extra car that's not worth anything because it's not drivable. But as soon as it's drivable, it's back to being an asset that you could move. So you're not taking a 0 if you spend that and you don't win, because there's probably some usability for next year.
So there's got to be some kind of thread, the reason I'm asking that question. But let's say you get knocked out of the playoffs. What are you selling Chase Brown for?
I mean, if I'm the seller, I'm going, hi, give me a first. Give me a first for Chubba Hubbard. You know what I mean? Like if
you're gonna need a first worth of value to get rid of them. Is that fair to say?
Yes. If I'm selling, see, for me, I'm not scared of, like a year ago, we would have been on this stream going, if you're out of it, like why wouldn't you sell any running back for a first, right? But I think the one thing that's going to happen this offseason is, someone said it in the chat earlier that, and maybe I took the comment in a little bit of a different way, but you're going to see, I think, one prediction that I think you're going to see into the offseason, February, March, that wasn't the case in the past, is people are going to assign more of this kind of like floor or reserve value on some of these running backs, guys that historically Chubba Hubbard should not be worth a first ever, but he's not going to move much. because the person that has him is already going to assign him a spot on their roster. And they're going to go, you essentially have to pay me to get rid of him because I'm still banking that he fits into as my RB3, 4, whatever it might be on my team. And I'm willing to assume the risk that he's just going to get replaced because if we've learned anything about running backs, Clay, they're not just going to get replaced. Guys like Chubba Hubbard and Chase Brown, they're not just going to get ethered to where they're irrelevant. They may not be as good. They may be a companion with another running back that we think is very good, and that guy gets 50% of the work. Like, that's possible, but they're not going to go to zero. And if you have a guy like that, there's going to be spurts during the season where you go, okay, he's not really startable. There's going to be other spurts where you go, hell yeah, I'm glad I have all of these Ramondre Stevenson shares hanging around because I can start him every week until I can't. So I think you're going to have to be convicted. If you really think Chase Brown is great, then you're going to have to pay that to pry him off of the roster that was not as scared as they would have been in years past to just go, oh, he's a 4th, 5th round running back. He's just going to get dumped because he's probably not. A lot of these guys aren't just going to get really dumped. The Pollards, the Swifts, those guys, they have some lasting power that may not have existed a couple years ago.
It's going to be awesome to see how the RB landscape changes with these rooks coming in. And like you said the other night, RB has never been a stronger position or coming off of this year. This is the best running back.
You want to hear an incredible number?
I don't know if you listen to an incredible number.
I don't know if you listen to Destination Dynasty, but it's okay if you didn't. So there are 28 running backs this year that are averaging more than 12 points per game. Historically, replacement value just in a PPR is right around like 11 points per game. So we have guys that are kind of like at that RB2 or higher threshold. There's 28 of them this year. Here's the incredible thing. Of those players, of those 28, they've played 93% of the possible games that they could have played. So they're not only, there's this chunk of running backs, and at the top, obviously you have Saquon and Mixon and Henry, but after like the top 6 or 7, you have a huge cluster that's between like 13 and 17 points per game. But even just all of them from 1 through 28, they've all been healthy. I can't find one. There's only one in the entire actually there's 0 now because he fell out based on average. Every single one of those top 28 running backs, Clay, have played at least 10 games.
Yeah.
And most NFL teams have only played 13 or 14 games or 13 games at this point because everyone's had a bye week. So think about that. Like, there's not been injuries. You haven't seen I had a team full of Chubba Hubbards and James Connors and Rashad Whites, and they've all been injured 3 or 4 games a year. They're not missing games. And the receivers are the opposite.
Was already out. Yeah, receivers are the opposite.
Receivers are the opposite. It's like if that trend continues, and we've been debating, why do you think that is? Do you think that is because of like the workloads are being diminished and a lot of these guys are kind of being used a little, but they're not. The funny thing is the touches aren't necessarily way lower. You don't have every one of these guys doing this on 12 touches a game. I mean, you have guys in there that are still averaging 18 opportunities a game, and DeAndre Swift ain't getting injured. James Conner's not getting injured. What happened? Why is it?
That's a curious question. I can't speak intelligently on it. I'm very curious as to the answer. I wonder if it's like new offenses and whatnot, if it's more motion and I don't know, more action involved that's causing them to have to make more moves to get injured. I have no idea. That's a great question.
Is it luck?
I mean, there's so much variance,
because
right?
I've asked a couple injury analysts out there, like, why is Jeff? It? No one's really been able to. I don't think anyone knows. You know what I mean? I don't think we can look at like this subset of running backs and go, why aren't they getting injured? So the real question is it predictive? Because if this is the distribution of how this is going to look, especially compared to like diminished tight end scoring a little bit, receivers that are getting injured at higher rates than running backs, like there's no reason not to assign some of these values, especially with how many of these guys there are and how many of the guys coming into rookie drafts that could easily fit into that top 28 role. But I kind of fear like people are just going to react and go, oh, every running back was healthy this year, so let's assign a random first to guys like Chubba Hubbard. And the normal attrition rate on these guys is probably like 25, 30%, not 7%. So is it predictive? I don't know. Something I'm still weighing and trying to figure out.
Good stuff. All right, let's go to, let's see, ND with the question from earlier. Thank you very much. It is, we're 45 minutes in, 253 folks joining us. Appreciate it. We're going to go to 10 p.m. likely. All right. Traded off of excess players at the start of the season per your advice. All right, here we go. Sold DK for a 25 first that ended up being the 101. Oh, hell yeah. 9 and 5, second in points for, and earned a buy. Nice. Says you guys are the best. Thanks. No, hey, I appreciate you letting us know. You're the one driving the ship, though, right? But ooh, how nice is that? DK ends up turning into the 101, Scott.
I mean, that's just gravy, right? That you guessed right on the pick and it ended up being that high of an asset. I mean, that's regardless of whether you would have said I missed the playoffs by 10 points. Like, you still probably made a good move by getting the 101, right? Here's what I'm curious. Did he say how many starters?
He did not. No.
Okay.
Let's assume 10.
Okay. Well, why I asked that is ND in the chat. What did you do with that spot that most people would have said, ooh, you're a contending team and you just got rid of DK Metcalf? How did you fill it? Name some of the players that you filled it with and how you got those players. Did you already have them? Did you, kind of patchwork it together week to week and buy players? Like, how did you fill that spot? Because I think people don't realize that in real time, Clay, when we're going, oh, are you a contender? Someone says I'm a contender. Immediately you go, I cannot trade away anything good, right? But this person just said, I made the playoffs. I got a buy. I made a good trade where I netted the 101, but I'm curious, how did you get there? Did you just have, he might have had a loaded ass team and you're going, oh, I can trade DK because I have 3 other guys like him. But if you didn't, what did you fill that spot with? Did you go, oh, now I have to start this guy? And it worked out. So I'm just curious, what did you fill the spot with? If you could answer that in the chat, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah, we'll see if he pops in with the answer, and then we'll remember it. Okay, let's go to what is this? All right, you read this. We don't have Shane to put this on. Go ahead, Scott.
12 team Superflex.
No. Sorry, the name. I've got the format.
Oh, okay.
The name here.
Tito Leewood. Tito.
I was trying.
You were thinking of like
I saw
Tidiola Wood. Is that how you read it? I can see where you can see it. Tito Leo Wood, but I think it's Tito Leewood would be.
I was looking for. Yeah, we need.
You
Shane's,
saw Tit
in the room.
Shane would have seen Tit.
Yeah,
not
right,
gone past that. 100%. Yes.
Bless his heart. Okay, so this is a 12-team Superflex half PPR start 10. It says tight end premium. Let's just assume it's a small one. So full PPR for the tight ends, 12-1 and the number 1 seed. Nicely done. Tight end was my only weak spot with Pitts. Traded the 205 for Kittle today. Yeah, I mean, Kittle, I guess, in a half PPR, small tight end premium. Are you flexing? Are you flexing him? Likely in this?
I think he's one of the few that you could.
Yes, right.
He's the tight end 1.
I mean, he's in your tight end spot, likely. But you get the idea. Somebody who's scoring that kind of points.
Honestly, Clay, like I would have rather traded Kyle Pitts for George Kittle than the 205. You know what I mean? The 205, I'm sitting here going, and I think this comes down to like, how do you want to roster construct going forward? Kittle clearly is in over Pitts. But what would you rather have in this type of format? The 205, which could be the next Trey Benson, Blake Corum. Now, whether they're good or not, and I use those names intentionally because I think people go, oh, those guys aren't any good. But easily you could picture where those guys are in this range of Chubba Hubbard and Chase Brown, right? Like easily. But doesn't it feel like you get more by keeping the 205 and just trading Kyle Pitts for George Kittle instead? Like, I don't know if he could have done that, but I think this is where you go, okay, like what is the thinking of the manager here that gave away the 205 for Kittle, but didn't move Pitts? Oh, Pitts will be my tight end next year, right? But
yeah, that's a good point. That's where I guess you just include Pitts as well and try to get something else that you want. You can just add him to the mix, right there. You're just doing a Pitts Kittle swap and trading other stuff.
Well, the team trading Kittle is probably out of it, I assume, correct? I mean, they're moving Kittle. I would have just offered him. Like, I think the lesson is instead of giving up the flexibility in a format where you're already devaluing tight end, like just send Pitts for Kittle. Like 2 years ago in Dynasty, you'd have been like, that's crazy. Even if Kittle's outscoring him by 5 points a game, you wouldn't send the young tight end for Kittle. But now, like, yeah, give me the 205 over Pitts in that type of format specifically. So it's a good trade.
Yeah, in that kind of format, let's just call it a 12-team half PPR. It's 205, and we think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2025, we like to think of it as a running back class. Okay, so that 205 and a half PPR, got to think it's going to be pretty thin at that point with running back. So if you're holding that, are you, TBD, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, how am I'm either, I don't know, there might be some wide receiver value that's down there that gets pushed down because of the half PPR bias now.
Here's how I look at it. The RB3 and the RB9 are the same thing for my construction. There's a level of randomness that's going to exist in a good running back class where you may prefer them in this order, but the whole reason to keep the pick there is, there's going to be a couple receivers that get drafted before that. There's going to be a couple quarterbacks. Hell, there might be 3 or 4 quarterbacks. We don't think the quarterback class is good, but Clay, this is the NFL. There could be 4 quarterbacks that go in the first round, and somebody's going to go, ooh, that could be the next Bo Nix or Michael Penix. You know what I mean? I'm going to draft him ahead of the RB7. I'm looking at it more of, if you want to take advantage of kind of how this year is shaken out, if you're willing to bet on what we just talked about at running backs, feels like that's the format where you do want to take the dart on next year's like Jalen Wright version. Even if you're wrong, your construction is going to thank you more when you have that versus what happens next year when you go, okay, now I have Kyle Pitts and George Kittle. I don't want to flex Kyle Pitts in a half PPR.
No.
So what is he? He's just there. He's a mythical piece that you're hoping for something. And
some window, like a trade, like that kind of something, a reboot.
But think through this, Clay. What would it take to trade him? What has to happen for you to be able to trade him for what you probably think he's worth?
So much stuff. In the meantime, he's just not adding any value to your.
He has to be what? He has to what? Play good. And then what's going to happen if he starts to play good? The manager with him is going to
play
go
well yet in his career.
Okay, but
if he could just get a trade, I know what you mean.
I'm saying he needs to probably have a couple good games, right? Look like he's being used differently next year than how he is this year.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people with him, when that happens, guess what they won't do then? They'll go, Kyle Pitts might be my future starting tight end. Then they trade him. They'll want more than they did before, and they still won't trade him. So you get caught up in this, Pitts is my future, but I'm going to just bide a year while I eat George Kittle instead, and then I'll come back to Pitts in his 5th year. And you're like, that's just not usually how it works.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a trade in my head, and like a tight end premium, like a 2.0, like Kyle Pitts versus, and man, he would get just beat by most everybody. No, I was thinking of Jonathan Brooks or Kyle Pitts in a 2.0 tight end premium. And would you want Brooks over Pitts still?
No, we have a couple Brooks questions. Why don't you put them up? Because I think that's
I'm starting to. How many minutes are we deep in here? Starting to get a little tired. So Sandiford says random third is better than Jonathan Brooks right now. What do you think?
I agree on the surface that Brooks, if you can liquidate for a third and you can do something with the third, fine. Here's my only hesitation, and I'm not disagreeing with him. I just think he's kind of like a poorer version of Ayuk, right? Like he has a devastating injury, Clay. This is not one where you just go, he'll be fine. He'll come back, right? But if he does, I mean, dude, people are paying like late first for J.K. Dobbins. And I know he had to produce, but there is some merit to where if you can collect some Jonathan Brooks, not that I want to just go send out thirds to get him, but the plan is there's going to be a window. There's going to be a window where, maybe we hear that this injury was a clean ACL tear. He should be back next summer. Maybe he's even back before the season. And all you need is the window, right? The window where I can give up him and a third and get the Chubba Hubbard before the season that people question. Like it's just a window. It's not I expect anything out of him. If anything, I hope he comes back and he's just usable. You know what I mean? But just to get rid of him for a third, if you say, hey, I'm done with that old coffee table. I hate it. Even though I'm going to need a coffee table in the future, it's such an eyesore. I want it out of my living room. Here, take it for $5. Like that's the situation. If you don't have that, then I do think there's going to be a window to have some Brooks stash, but it's not because I think he gets back and he's ever anything close to what the expectations were, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I already have too much Brooks. Let's go to Pero Like Why. Thank you for the question. It says, sent Kyler Ayuk 26 first, 25 second for Josh Allen. Picks are not mine. Overpaid a bit, maybe, but had most buying power by far. Had to eventually start spending. So let me reread this. Kyler Ayuk 26 first, 25 second for Josh Allen. That is not an overpay for me. Is that an overpay for you at all? I'm just assuming a start 10. Is it?
I mean, especially if you got him before week 14. But regardless, I mean, no, because you gave up. Here's the thing. You just admitted that you had the most spending power, right? So, yeah, did you overpay? Maybe a little bit on paper, according to some random trade calculator. But relative to your league, it's like,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Did I overpay for the best thing out there? You know what I mean? Like the only alternative to getting the best thing is getting more things. And you just traded away more things. But honestly, like, dude, you got credit for, again, I love using the real life analogies, but like if someone says, hey, I'm going to charge you $500 for this, but all you really have to give me is $400 and you just kick in that old lawnmower you have in the garage, you're going, I didn't have to pay $500, right? I paid $400, but I got credit for Brandon Ayuk, who the whole reason I have him is probably for a time where I can get credit for him as a real asset. So if that was another first instead of Ayuk, then you're like, okay, you gave up a lot of buying power and a lot of flexibility. Yes, you got the best asset or the best quarterback asset, but you gave up a lot of flexibility. But he gave up a second in Brandon Ayuk, and that was half of what he had to add. I'm fine with that.
Yes. Rock on. Okay, let's keep moving here. And Ethan, I'm gonna get to. We have a missed hammer from Ethan, and I've got it. I've got his email, and there's a lot of context, but I'm not gonna put it in a bunch of banners. But it's stuff that needs to be read because there's an expansion draft, all this sorts of stuff. So I'm just gonna end up reading most of it out. Let's just do it right now while I'm on it. So
I like
Ethan.
The expansion draft. That's I'm curious.
Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of reading here. It's gonna be hard for the listen, but. Ethan, thank you very much for the hammer. Sorry for missing your hammer. No hammers left behind. So 10 team switching to a 12 team. The Superflex, half PPR, full PPR for the tight end, start 10. The team is Mahomes, Kyler, Bryce, and backups at quarterback. Running backs are Cans. Has Chase, AJ Brown, Rome, Wilson, Kirk, Shaheed at wide receiver. Tight end, nothing. The 101, 526 firsts and 3 seconds. And then here's where I'm going to start reading, but at least we'll have that up on the screen. Okay. Context. We're holding an expansion draft to increase our number of teams from 10 to 12 this January after the season. Each existing team gets to protect 6 assets, then lose 2, keep 4 more, then lose 3 more. Let me stop right there. Are you following that right off the bat?
So I'm
not even looking at your face.
Protect 6, lose 2, and then protect 4 more. Is that right?
Protect 6, lose 2, keep 4 more.
Okay,
then
so he gets to keep
3 more.
He gets to keep 10 of his 12 assets, and he's trying to weigh like what is somebody going to take from him when I don't protect them. Right.
So I'll keep reading. So it says 2025 picks are included as assets that can be taken in the expansion draft, but all picks in 26 are protected. I originally planned on contending, but after a slow start, I blew it all up and bought as many 26 picks as possible to protect my team's value. Question. I want to contend next year, but even with a good core of players, I still have a lot to add. What would be the best strategies to rebuild after the expansion draft? He can make trades now. Okay. And then as from tearing up from Rome to Bowers. Okay. What do you think here, man? I read out how this is moving, expanding from a 10 to 12. He's talking about how he collected tons of 26 picks to be able to protect himself because those can't be traded. 25s are assets in the expansion draft. But what are you doing?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the question. This is the kind of thing that like we really love nerding out on, the strategy part of this. So I think he nailed it. He took all of his assets and combined them into the best pieces I can possibly get or picks that are protected, right? So if you just look at this, like it's easy, you're going, you know what he's going, you know what he's going to lose here, Clay? He's probably going to lose Bryce Young. That's probably the piece he's going to have to say, I know I'm going to lose, but I'm okay with that because I have Mahomes and Kyler. So yeah, would I like to keep them? Yeah, but I'm probably going to say, okay, I'm going to keep Mahomes. I'm going to keep Kyler. I'm going to keep Chase. I'm going to keep AJ Brown. I'm going to keep the 101, and then I'm going to keep probably Rome over Bryce Young, given my roster, right?
Yes.
So those are my 6. And what would you take from this team if you're an expansion team?
Yeah, so it's 6, you lose 2.
Well, the expansion team's going to probably go, oh my God, Bryce Young is there because every other team's going to keep their quarterbacks that they have most likely. You know what I mean?
So Bryce Young, yep.
So you're going to lose Bryce, and then, you know, think about this, and here's why I think he nailed it. Yeah, you have to lose Bryce Young. But how many other teams in the league, Clay, do you think are set up to assume the loss of 2 of their top 8 assets and then lose more on top of that? Like there's going to be every team in the league is going to be searching to fill some holes. The expansion teams, let's be honest, I don't think this is a great way for the expansion teams to be able to do much. Like they're not going to be good teams. You know what I mean? There might be a couple that get a little luckier and can contend earlier, but one of the 2 expansion teams is just going to be completely dead in the water because Bryce Young is their best asset, you know?
Yes.
So, and you have 5 26 firsts already. So you control a lot of the teams that are going to be impacted in the expansion draft. You control their next flexible piece that they would have had available to them after the draft. So I think he goes into next year as the best team, and you have 2 victims that just joined this league to be the expansion teams. Guess what they're probably going to want? Hey, I know I got this running back in the expansion draft, but I'd love to get a 26 first. So yeah, it's a layup. You did a great job consolidating here. You're going to lose a couple pieces, but like you lose Rashid Shaheed, Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
Who cares? You're good. Great job.
Awesome.
Right. Well played by
Mr. Ethan.
That's a person that knew the format and went, I need to get ahead of it. Because
that warms your heart. That warms your heart.
As soon as people thought to go after the 26 picks, they're probably untouchable now. You know what I mean? Like nobody's moving them because they're assets that you don't have to protect.
Yeah. So Ethan, listen to this a couple times. Re-listen to what Scott said to make sure you're charging properly if people want them. Oh, Simon, good to see you, man. Letting people keep 26 picks and beyond is a loophole that Ethan smashed. Yep. All right, rock on. Let's keep rolling here. So we have Scott Landry with a question from 6:30. He was one of the first couple. Again, hit that notification bell. Ooh, and we have our show coming out tomorrow, Scott. The one that we just recorded last night. What the hell did we record about? Oh yeah, depth.
Yep.
Whether depth matters. Across like different formats and whatnot. It was a good discussion. So be on the lookout for that. Probably tomorrow, around midday. Okay. Scott Landry asks, what are the values of early, mid, and late firsts from now until the rookie draft? Now after the offseason and then after the NFL draft. What are the picks worth? Assuming a fairly standard league. Okay. So looking to know the values of early, mid, and late first from now until the rookie draft. Talk about that first.
I mean, it's really hard to say because for me, I usually zoom out of a class and try to picture the first thing is what are the vibes and the feel of this class going to be? You know, like what are the holes that the masses, when I say masses, I have no clue what his league is like. I have no clue what the league mates value, what they don't value, what the market says. I don't know where the assets are parked in the league, right? Some of our leagues, it's kind of hard to do certain trades because certain assets are parked in certain places and the demand doesn't line up with the manager that may hold those picks. You know what I mean? Like the demand and what the activity level that person's
gotcha.
willing to do or the creativeness that person's willing to put into a trade doesn't line up. So it's hard to answer. I think just zooming out, people are going to view this as a class where they're going to be able to fix running backs. But I do think the closer we get to the draft, we are going to start hearing some bigger voices in the space saying, let's maybe pump the brakes a little bit on just assuming this class is going to replenish the running back rooms of a lot of teams. I think there's a lot of good running backs in the class, but I talked earlier about those running backs that can give you, RB2 numbers or, let's call it 14 points per game. Like you need some luck, even as a rookie running back that gets like second or third round capital to just hit that number. You know what I mean? Like you need to be in the right spot. You need to have the right usage. There's a lot of things that go into it. You can't just say, oh, well, that's the RB6 in the class. They went in the late second round. They're guaranteed to just give me what like Tony Pollard gave me. Like it's hard. So if the market value views that as that's what's going to happen, I think there's going to be a lot of people that buy into this class for that. A lot of our leagues, people are going to go like, I'll take the picks. But if what I'm getting is running back, I understand that I'm still getting some volatility of, I could end up with, people thought Trey Benson would give you a couple games this year, even if he doesn't overtake James Conner. Like he didn't even give you, there wasn't one game you could have gone, I can actually start Trey Benson and feel like, he's usable. But that doesn't change what he is. Guess what he is? The next same thing next year. So how does your league value getting that? Because if you don't have that, I don't think the quarterbacks or the receivers in this class, when you get to like the late first, early second, people are going to be impressed at all. You are going to see people getting out of those picks if they're not a running back centric league, if they're not understanding that like NERB on a 53 type roster building. Yeah. You're going to not have the same clout that you had in years past by drafting the RB5 in the class. If that's a second round pick, people are just going to go, I need to see something first. So I think it's going to be a rough class for those late picks if it's not running back craze in your league. So very, very specific to your league, I think, what they will pay for them.
Well, speaking of this one was recently started by you, it looks like. Is Jeanty the 101 even in a Superflex? As of today, it is December 10th as we're recording this.
Doesn't he feel like right now, if you had to pick the asset, you would just take him?
Probably.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I saw a debate earlier in the chat, like Drake Maye or Jeanty.
I love Drake Maye, but yeah, it depends on my room.
Asking the question because
if I've got
why
like
do you
Derek
lean
Carr
Jeanty?
to go
Why
with,
do you hesitate when you hear Jeanty? What in your brain? And I know what you're going to say. What in your brain makes you go, man, I really can't pass up on that Jeanty or that 101? What is it
that I can't pass up on it?
If I'm asking you Drake Maye or Jeanty for no context, right? What is it that makes you a little hesitant to take Drake Maye? What's that voice saying, Clay, do you really want to do this right now?
Because one, everybody's a closet running back fan, but no, the hype and the insulation around Jeanty's gonna be ridiculous, and you're gonna have a lot of flexibility and stuff on the clock if you don't actually make that pick. Who are you taking there? I'm really curious now. You got me Drake Maye. I like Drake Maye a lot. Him or Jeanty? Is it close for you?
I would take Drake Maye, but that's also because I'm very confident in how I will just play that running back room or that running back spot.
It's how I build too, yeah.
So I wanted to highlight that because I think there's a lot of people that if you ask them, not Drake Maye versus Jeanty, but go down the line, 104 or this player, 105 or this player. Most people right now over the next couple months are going to go, man, what could I do with that pick? And it's just going to be a what could I do? What could I do? What could I do? But there's a lot of leagues where I have the 103 or the 104. But Clay, nobody in the DTI 5 OG league is going to pay through the nose to get my 104. And that might be the last quarterback available. But I know that type of league. It's not going to be the league where if someone offers me a pretty decent deal, that's not the league where I go, oh, I'll get a better deal on the clock. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of listeners that have leagues like that where if the next Brock Bowers emerges or whatever, it's just going to be like someone gave me 4 first for him. You know what I mean? And if that's your league, then of course side on the pick. But a lot of leagues aren't like that. You hold out. Oh, I'm going to get that grandfather offer. I'm going to get it. Oh shit, I'm on the clock. I have to pick. Oops.
Yeah.
So
I sold Bowers so cheap, like 4 weeks ago or something like that, 5 weeks ago. A league I'm in with Shane. I don't remember the exact trade, but it was Bowers. Anyway, it was really low, but I did it. It was me getting greedy. I already had 520. It's total blow up. I already had 5 or 6 25 first. I want to say 6 of them, and this was going to give me 7. And I already had, a usable tight end. And I guess I wasn't expecting him just to be absurd, indefinitely here. I sold him cheap. I got a 26 first, some like innings eater, and then maybe a 27 first as well. It was a bad trade. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So Jamal Thompson says, sold Brooks in a first for Mixon in a second a few weeks back to fill a hole behind Bijan. This was a 12-team Superflex 12-team Superflex half PPR start 9. Locked in the bye, hoping to win it all. Well, good luck on that. So, 12-team Superflex start 9, very shallow. Sold Brooks in a first for Mixon in a second a few weeks back. Oof. And it's just been smashing ever since.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, so this is a deal before Brooks tore his ACL when he was coming on. He looked like he was going to start growing into a little bit of a bigger role, right? Like this is the kind of deal I might have done the other way around, right? Because now I have a first and Brooks, and probably all I needed was a decent Brooks showing where I probably then could have gone, okay, I sold Brooks for maybe not Joe Mixon, but I went one tier down and got that guy. You know what I mean? I sold Brooks for insert whatever player it might be. So I could have come out on this ahead where I netted a first, and then instead of Joe Mixon, I had another running back that maybe is not him, but I ended up getting, I don't know, Kyron Williams or something like that. You know what I mean? Where I ended up, okay, you sold Mixon in a second for Kyron Williams in a first. That's a different deal. In hindsight, though, I mean, he got extreme credit here for Jonathan Brooks. So who's now a dead asset. So the fact that you got a second back, like it looks like a home run deal now. So go win the championship, Jamal. No. But what I'm in a deal, I could have built around the trading Mixon away, even on a contender.
Simon says, sorry for your loss. I sold a Bowers to this was a 2 tight end, 2.
What do you even sell it for in a 2 tight end, 2 PPR? Is there even a
price? No, he's essentially the same as Jaden Daniels.
Right. You need
in that format, I need.
Like you're not even selling him for like Chase or Jefferson in that.
No,
because it's like those guys are great, but they're not. They can't be replicated. Bowers can't be replicated as easy compared to what everybody else has to now start at tight end compared to those guys. So yeah, that's.
He said it was Kelsey and 226 first is what he sold Bowers for.
Process to it.
Process
to it.
So happens. Okay, we're getting there. Got 15 minutes left. Let's ramp through these starred ones here. So AJ Matsek. No. But what are your guys' thoughts on dynasty leagues observing a trade deadline after the fantasy regular season versus no trade deadline? Almost all of my leagues have a trade deadline after the week 14 games. What are your thoughts here, Scott?
Well, I'll give a shout out to AJ. I believe it's probably Matusik is how I would say his name.
Yeah, I was giving him a whole different region of the world. Go ahead.
Okay, so are we saying no trade deadline at all versus have one at the end of week 14, basically? What's the difference? I mean, I think there's still some downside to taking teams that are out of it and not allowing them to do anything, right? But I think there's a compromise. We talked about this, Shane and I did a couple weeks ago. We talked about if you're going to have a trade deadline and your league just makes it absolute that you cannot trade once the playoffs have begun, at least let people trade for this 2 or 3 days before the playoffs start. Right? Like give the teams that just got knocked out, give them 3 days
Hell yeah.
Make the teams in the
Fire sale.
playoffs. You have to make your bed in the next couple days, and you have to lay in it the whole rest of the season. But don't eliminate the teams that just got a big game from like Isaac Guerrero and go, you're not allowed to trade him.
Yeah, it's brutal.
So give them a little leeway. Let's start the trade deadline at the start of the team's games in week 15. So if you have a player that's playing on Thursday night, they're locked after the game starts. You can't trade those players, but you can trade a player Saturday. One of the semifinalists or quarterfinalist teams can buy a player before the playoffs start. I don't think there's a problem with that. It's a nice compromise. And trust me, you're not going to see abuse of the types of deals you're going to get, or you're going to get like Will Dissly for Austin Hooper, that kind of trade where seriously, like it's not going to be game-changing deals. Some good assets may change hands, but it's not going to be like one team just handed another team the title because there's still 6 teams alive. There's still a lot of buyers. So you still have kind of a true market. It isn't the 2 finalists are in an arms race. Totally different.
And this is great too, because it's kind of working your way towards the no trade deadline. Like, that's a gateway drug. I love it. That's a good idea. Okay. So I'm Leo says I'm first seed at 21-7, and I have Rice coming next season, but no first rounder. Should I try to get one with Rice or Pickens? Okay, first seed. So he's stacked right now. He's winning, and he has Rashee Rice coming back next season. He doesn't have a first, which is probably why he's up there. Should he try to? Yeah, what are you doing here? Are you trying to just get a first back by selling a Rice or Pickens, or is that not the way to look at it?
I mean, I'd sell Pickens for a first. Like we were talking about it with Jeff the other night on the show. Like this injury that he has, he's out week 15. Week 16, he may or may not play, but they play Baltimore. So that's a game where if he can come back, he probably can. But then Clay, in week 17, they play the Christmas Day game. So he's on a short week. So literally they have 3 games in the next 15 days. And they've already basically said, we don't want this to get worse, because if they don't have Pickens in the playoffs, they're cooked. They have no chance. So he may miss the rest of the year. So if you can just liquidate a first, Rashee Rice, I'm probably holding. If I have Rashee Rice this long and I've been 21-7 without him, like, can I better yet, can I trade Pickens for another receiver? Or if I need something, can I just get something that helps me the rest of the season? Like, I have no problem moving Pickens in a deal like this. None at all.
Yeah.
You want to, if you can plug in another random guy like we were talking about earlier and not really feel the hurt on missing Pickens, liquidate for a first, right? I think it's a pragmatic move regardless of whether he's injured or not.
Sure. Okay, let's go to this is from earlier. Ryan Yeatman said, I managed to get Chubba and Chase Brown from a team chasing the 101 on November 1st for Kendre Miller, Ricky Pearsall, and a 27-second. My goodness, that is cheap points that you just got there. You just got a lot of fantasy points for Kendre Miller, Ricky Pearsall, as Shane would say, and a 27-second.
I would say it's a great deal in hindsight, like with the results that you've gotten from those two guys, if you've just played them. But better, he probably capitalized on the Ricky Pearsall window. You know what I mean? Like the window where it looked like he was going to be the dude for the rest of the season, and he took advantage of moving him in that deal. If you don't have him in that deal, you probably don't get that done. And I can see why the team that was chasing the 101 did the deal. You know what I mean? They get a second, they get Ricky Pearsall, who's an asset they thought they'd be able to resell. And it probably, I mean, those points probably did help them go from like the 102, 103 to the 101. I don't know if they got it, but if they did, they're not going to probably regret that deal, given they just traded away 2 running backs. But great deal for Ryan. Great deal.
Yeah. And Ryan, I just saw you went to buymeacoffee.com/trades-in-5, and you bought us 3 hammers on there. Thank you very much with a question here. So I'm going to pull another one up on the screen, and I'm going to make a banner while Scott answers it. So let's just hit it while we're on it. All right, Cameron, this is a 12-team Superflex, 5th seed in the playoffs. Running backs are Breece, Braylon Allen, Kamara, Chubb, Jerome Ford, Pollard. What do you think Kamara's – is it Kamara or Kamara? Remind me. We got 10 minutes left in this show. What is it?
I always say Kamara, yeah.
Kamara, yeah. Okay.
I think he's corrected people in the past, but I don't know which one it is. So forgive me.
Do you think Kamara is worth? What do you think Kamara is worth after this season, Scott?
I mean, we've kind of already talked about this. Like, he just falls into the mix of, are you willing to bet another year on him? If I have him and I go, I'm willing to bet another year on him, then you know what he's worth. What someone will pay for me to pry him off my roster with that take that I have. There's going to be other people that go, there's no way I can buck this trend for another year. I'll sell him for a second. I just don't think that's going to be as common. And I think in startup drafts, it's going to be real interesting when we get in startup season, Clay. Instead of taking that sixth receiver, people are going to start going, you know what? I'm going to start taking running backs. You know, I'm going to draft 4 of them.
Yes.
And 2 of them are going to die, but I'm going to be fine with the 5 running backs that I drafted in the first 10 rounds of the startup. Whereas last year, you're like, oh, round 10, I got my RB1 and it was, you know, Aaron Jones. And I feel great. You know what I mean? But I think that's going to change. So hard to answer your question. Put him out there. If you had to put a price on him, I'd rather do can I push the first out a year or two? Can I get a 26 or a 27 and I'll give you like a third? Like, if I'm wanting to sell, I do want to probably get that versus, I'll just take a second. Unless I'm getting a second and another running back that I think can be just as usable next year. That'd be the only type of leverage deal that I would do.
Sounds good. Good timing. Let's put up this hammer from, this was again from Ryan. He got us 3 hammers over at buymeacoffee.com/trades5. You can ask questions on there at any time. It's not guaranteed that it's going to be answered on a live stream. We're going to start doing them obviously with Shane here too, kind of like we're doing right now, answering questions from the crowd, super chat, stuff like that. Not like how we used to do it with just permanent, you know, answering buy me a coffee questions, but we'll still appreciate the donations and hit those on there as well. Okay. Ryan, thanks again. Made the playoffs as a 4 seed, but don't think I'll be able to beat the 1 and 2 seed in back-to-back weeks. 10-team Superflex, start 11. It is, looks like it's PPR. What is this? I think it's, okay. 10-team Superflex, half PPR, full PPR for the tight end, start 11. 4 point per passing touchdown. Team is Stroud, Kyler, Achane, Ken Walker, Chase Brown, Chubba at running back. Then we have Nico, Puka, Marv, BTJ, DJ Moore, Waddle at wide receiver, Hawkinson and Kincaid at tight end. 125 first, has 327 first. Question is, do I sell my productive assets like Chase Brown and Chuba Hubbard for picks, or do I move a young piece for another hammer? Thanks so much. So again, he's in the playoffs, 4 seed, but there are a couple powerhouse teams at 1 and 2. He's not sure can beat them back-to-back weeks. 10-team Superflex, start 11. What do you think? Should he sell productive assets like Chase and Chuba for picks, or should he try to get another hammer? He's in the playoffs, baby. Chip in a chair.
I mean, 10 by 11, that's 110. It's equivalent of a 12 by 9. I think that one thing that we do not do a great job of is assuming that we're not going to be able to beat both those teams back to back. Now, I agree that if they're stacked teams, pulling 2 upsets in a row is going to be tough. But is it that big of a deal if you get to the finals and then you lose? You don't pull the mega upset? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the answer is to go and start selling off of those pieces unless you go put the league or put the team back up there real quick if you could. I mean, what do we have here? You're going to start Stroud and Kyler. You may not have Kenneth Walker, but basically you're going to start the other 3 running backs. You're going to be throwing Nico, Puka, probably Marv, BTJ, DJ Moore. You're going to some combination of those receivers, and then probably Hawkinson, right? Like, your lineup is what it is. I don't really see a lot of excess here. Now, if you can sell one piece and you go, you know what, I can still afford to sell one player, net another first. I don't think selling, like, for instance, if you just said right now, I don't think he's going to come back and play for a couple weeks, I'm selling Kenneth Walker for a first. Your chances of winning the title, they increase 0 with Kenneth Walker or no Kenneth Walker. You know, and there's no impact long-term if you make that trade. So if you want to make one move like that, especially for the guy that you don't think may play, like Kincaid or Kenneth Walker, do it, because I don't think your odds change. I also don't know if there's really a way you can up tier here. Because who probably has the pieces you want? The super teams that you're trying to beat.
Yeah, right.
Like, you're not just going to hand Stroud and Kenneth Walker for Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like, your bet has been made with the players that you have. They're going to have some spike weeks. I'll give 2 examples. I had a league this week where I actually sold all my assets, Clay. I sold Derrick. It's a 12 or 14 by 12. I sold Derrick Henry and Zach Ertz. It's a 2 PPR. So I sold Zach Ertz and Derrick Henry. I admitted I'm going to miss the playoffs, right? I'm going to lose. And I was in 5th place. And it's one of those where if I don't win my matchup, I'm out because it's the highest points gets the 6th spot. And it wasn't going to be me. I was a 39-point underdog based on projections. So I go, I'm screwed. You know what I mean? I'll sell Zach Ertz and Derrick Henry. I got a 1st and a 3rd and Austin Eckler for that package. I'm like, I'll take it. 39-point underdog, lost Breece Hall, got rid of Henry and Ertz, who weren't playing this week. But I'm just looking at, like, there's no way I'm going to win. I win. So now I'm in the playoffs without Derrick Henry and Zach Ertz. And I'm going like, now what do I do? Because I'm dead. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to win. But I pulled an upset that literally was, I had a 5% chance or less or winning. So 2 in a row is tough, but I think we get way too caught up and there's no way I'm going to be able to beat this team. And then you go, wow, I beat them by 30 points. Like, it could happen. So
yeah. There was one league where Shane is an absolute trash can in that league, and he damn near, it was like the no flex league or something. He damn near pulled a crazy upset. I needed Jerry Judy to go bonkers that one night, putting up like a 40 burger or something. But yeah, Shane's got a couple funny spots.
We need to have Shane talk about the no flex league, because he even said it on I think it was on the Morning Drive or Mannequin Chill or something. He's like,
I was talking with one Morning Drive.
Yeah, on the Morning Drive when he said, I should probably not trade all my picks knowing exactly what's going to happen, like, before I have in a league like that where it's so constrictive. Did he like ruin his team in that league?
Oh yeah, because no, he opted to, so it's no flex. That's what makes it really fun and interesting, is you're like thinking about making a trade. You're like, wait, but I don't have a flex spot to be able to put this running back that I'm interested in buying. Oh yeah, I want Chase Brown on my team, but I've already got 3 running backs that I still want to start. So you don't have a flex, literally. But yeah, he spent, in the startup, he decided he was going to go. Yeah, was that the league where he decided he was going to go Jefferson?
I think he faded quarterback in a start 2 with no flexes.
Yeah, it was a start 2 quarterback, and he gave everything up to start 3 wide receivers. But yeah, now he doesn't have first, and his quarterbacks are trash cans after the draft. So he's like praying to be. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not trading away my first if I'm making a move like that. If I'm not taking any quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds, I'm not trading away my first.
I think that was the lesson, is now it's like you're in a league where people are going to start to adjust the values of, like, okay, you're not just going to draft best receiver available when you already have 9. Like, you're just going to take the quarterback because it's a lot harder to find. And he's like, now it's hard to build the team the other way. So yeah, lesson learned on that one.
Yeah, TBD too. But I think I remember that draft. It was really fun watching Shane work around that board. Good Lord. I don't think he made maybe 2 of his own picks that draft. Swim says, first time seeing this avatar. JSN caused my guy Shane to retire. Yeah, he gone. Yeah, JSN. JSN, JMO, who are some other like classic.
Well, he's honestly kind of proven right about JMO. Like, JMO he's okay.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
The JSN was, and Shane he had some personal stuff come up. He is definitely not retired. And one thing I will give Shane kudos for, he will admit when he's wrong. And now the problem is he usually overcorrects, and now it's like he buys in, you know what I mean? And then he gets burned. He'll be the one that'll put JSN in the top 10, and then he'll take him there, and then he'll get burned when he's, not really that. But anyway, I did want to share this, Clay. We got this response from ND. Remember I traded DK for the 101? Yep. And essentially he said he filled in those spots with, first of all, he said earlier he got absolutely killed in the chat for making the trade. So his league mates said it's a dumb trade for him to trade away Metcalf.
Gotta love it.
And he filled it with guys like Jennings, Rico Dowdle, and Ramondre. And traded Terry McLaurin for a first as well. Bought Sutton for a second. I mean, literally, he bought Sutton, Jennings, Rico, and Ramondre and traded away McLaurin for a first and DK for the 101. And I bet you his team did not feel the loss of any of the players he traded. You know what I mean? So well done. Thank you for the answer.
Yeah. That you can tell ND there is putting in work. Like he's active. So not only is he trading DK for that first, but he's making moves thereafter. He's not done there. Otherwise, you don't necessarily want to do a 1-for-1 like that. Okay. Crippy Mike. Let's read this one. Seeing some new names. Crippy Mike, what's up? Nice to meet you. I'm Clay. This is Scott. So 12-team Superflex, half PPR, Burrow, Darnold at quarterback, Saquon, Breece at running back, Puka, AJ Brown, Reed, Tyreek at wide receiver, Ferguson at tight end. And I have a first. Do I just hold or go after someone? All right. So this is, should I try to buy something and move forward in the playoffs with this team? Does this team have it? Burrow and Darnold. Yes. Good. Saquon, Breece, Puka.
I mean, Breece may not play.
Yeah.
So that's,
yeah, right.
Here's the good thing about this team is a guy like Jaden Reed has been bad recently and he's extremely volatile, but this team has no choice, right? Like you're just going to throw him in there. So the time you throw him in there, he could go for 26 points and you look like a genius because he had a 30% start rate now because he sucked the last month and you started him because you had no choice. Like I'd rather start a guy like Jaden Reed, Clay, than go pay for a guy for a first and then start that guy and go, God, he got outscored by Jaden Reed the 1 week when I had to put him in for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, this team isn't good enough where I'm like, I have to spend that first. Maybe if I can trade after week 1 of the playoffs, sure. But we don't know any of that context. We don't know the starters. We don't know the rules. So no, I'm probably just rolling with what I have.
I'm not trading my first away on this team.
Yeah.
No. Nope. Okay. Are we, we're there. 10:03. And that was our last start question. Rock and roll. Hey, thank you to the 267 people watching. Don't go away just yet. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, I put that up. There will be there'll be some stuff that'll pop up on the screen to click in and go to playlists from there. This is for the new people listening. Apologies. So 265 people still watching. They already hit that like. Thanks so much for joining tonight. Scott, would you like to say good night to the crew?
Yeah, good night to everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Good questions. I think this is probably, like we said, you'll see the video that we come out with tomorrow. Yeah. This is the funnest time of the Dynasty season for me, which is why I think you'll see why we're so passionate about the no trade deadline stuff, because the last couple weeks of these leagues, Clay, and going into the playoffs, like there's a lot of fun. You know what I mean?
It's so fun.
There's a lot of maneuvering and strategy. And yeah, you have some teams that get knocked out. I had a couple teams where I'm like, I wish I could be involved in the moves that are happening now, but I got knocked out or had to go from a buyer to a seller, etc. But it's just I can't imagine you saying, "Oh yeah, trading was over 2 weeks ago." Like
it's no. Every time you go into Sleeper, that little icon with the DM thing, there's at least 4 or 5, and then I click on that, and you can see such and such proposed to trade has proposed to trade. It's a good problem to have. But
yep.
All right, we're gonna sign off.
Appreciate you.
We will see you next time. Cheers.